Hi guys, it's good to have you all back to my channel. Welcome once again. This is Ajalam here. Thank you for always coming back to check out my channel. If you're new here, you're welcome. Consider subscribing and don't forget to turn on the bell icon so that you'll be the first to know anytime I post new videos. So for today, I'm going to share with us on how to make this stunning birthday party dress for a little girl. So if you're interested, let's get started. So here I have all the things needed to make this beautiful dress. Here I have my 1 yard of satin and I'm working with 7 yards of soft net. As you can see, I just divided this into 3 and 4. So I have 7 yards here, and I also have my 1 yard of cotton lining. So you're going to be needing your crinoline because we're going to be adding a crinoline to the lower part, as well as a nude or skin tone color net for the yoke part of this dress. So before we start, I am going to take the pattern so we can draft out the yoke part where we'll be attaching this color to. So I'm going to take my pattern here now. So here is my bodice pattern, and this is for a 2-year-old. So if you don't know how to draft a basic bodice pattern, I'm going to drop the link in the description box so you can check that out to know step by step on how to draft a fitted basic bodice pattern. So this is mine, and then as you can see, for the yoke part I've already cut this side off. So all I did was just to come up by 1 inch from this chest line. So I just mark out 1 inch and then cut it out. So this part is going to be the yoke, and I also did the same for the back pattern. So this is the yoke and this is going to be the satin. So if you want to cut on your fabric, you make sure to attach or add your sewing allowance only on this part. Now the next thing for you to know is the sleeve measurement. So for this dress is going to be a cold shoulder sleeve, and for you to know how to go about cutting the sleeve, you should note or know the round the shoulder measurement. So for this is for a 2-year-old, and the round the shoulder measurement is 26 inches. Oh sorry, 25 inches. Some is 26 depending on the size of the baby. So the round the shoulder is 25 for this particular one, and then you are going to note the neckline measurement. So when I say neckline measurement, is just from this part. Remember, this is how it is, and now the cold shoulder sleeve, I will be attaching that here on this part that we just cut off. This is where I'll be attaching it. So you need to take your tape and measure what you have on this part. So this is now the neckline, all right, because we will attach the cold shoulder exactly on this point. So you need to check what you have here. It doesn't matter where you mark yours. If you decide to go up by 2 inches or 1.5, just take your tape and measure what you have at that point to know how to go about cutting the off shoulder sleeve. So for here I have, so here I have 4 inches. Okay, and then I'm going to multiply that by 4. Okay, I have 4 inches here, and remember that we have 4 panels. This 2 is for the front and 2 for the back. So since I have 4 inches here, it's going to be 16 inches, 8 for front, 8 for the back side. So I'm going to minus 25 from that 16, and then I'm going to have 9 inches. Then you're going to add 1 to it to make it 10. So this is what I have. So you need to divide into 2 because your sleeve is 2. So you need to divide whatever you have into 2, and then I'll have 5 inches. Okay, so for my off shoulder sleeve is going to be 5 inches for this other side, 5 inches for the other sleeve, making it 10. But remember to add your sewing allowance. So for me, I'll be adding 1 inch for my sewing allowance. Half is going to be for front and the other half for the back side sewing allowance. So I will have 6 inches is what I'll be cutting out. Okay, now remember that I'll be making this part ruffle. I'm going to gather it. So to do that, I'll just multiply what I have here by 5 or 4 or 6, depending on how much fabric you have with you. So I'm going to multiply 6 by 5. I think that's 30. So this is 30 inches. That is what I'll be cutting out for the coat shoulder sleeve. Okay, so that's what I'll cut out. Now another simple way of going about knowing how many inches needed for your coat shoulder, you just need to take your tape and check what you have as the remaining armhole. Here, just place your tape and take it round, okay, and let it stop on this point. Remember that I added ½ an inch for my side sewing allowance, so let it stop. Let me take this closer so you can see. So let it stop on that first point. Don't let it reach to this end, which is the sewing allowance. So if you place your tape there, you can see that I have 2½ okay. If you do divide that into 2 for both the front and back, that is 5. You can see that I also have the same thing here, 5 inches. You just need to add your side or your sewing allowance, and that is how to go about knowing how many inches you need to cut out as your sleeve, coat shoulder sleeve. So for mine, because I'll be gathering it, I'll be cutting out 30 inches. Another thing to note is the length of your sleeve. So for this, the length, which is the wrist, that is from shoulder to wrist, is 12 inches. So I'll cut out 30 inches by 12 inches, okay, because for the wrist part, I will also gather it as well. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and cut all this out before we continue with the lower part. Alright, here I have everything cut out like I explained earlier. This is the sleeve that I said I'll be cutting out 12 inches by 30 inches. Remember, the 12 inches is the length of the sleeve. So I'm going to keep this aside, and this is the yoke. Like I said, you'll be cutting out 2 of it. One should serve as the lining. So here is the upper side. As you can see, I cut out some nets, like up to 5 or 6 here, because I don't want my satin to be visible. So I repeated the same for the back side. And before we continue, guys, our online classes are on. If you're interested in any of our online classes, please check the description box for a number to reach out for more details on how to go about that. So here I have my lining cut out as well. So I'm going to start. Remember that I said my nets I'm using 7 yards, and I cut out 4 yards separate, 3 yards separate, making it 7 yards. So from the one that is 4 yards, that is where I cut out all these parts, okay. And then for the ruffle that is going to go round the shoulder, I will also cut that out from the same 4 yards, okay. So whatever I have left now, I am going to use it to create layers together with these 3 yards here for the skirt part of this dress. So I will start by sewing in the yoke. So I'm going to take the yoke now, join the shoulders together, the neckline, and then the armhole, and then after that I'm going to give it a good press before we finish up. So this is where we are so far, and as you can see, I just finished sewing the neckline, and then I turn this inside out. That is for the yoke, and then I join this part to it, as you can see. So I'm going to repeat the same for the back. This is the back. I'm going to join it now as it is to this, okay, and then I'll turn it over before taking my lining now to stitch on it. Now this is how you're going to be joining your lining. So after sewing it, that allowance that should be here, after joining this, you just place your lining on it that same way and stitch exactly on the line before you now turn it over to the other side. Okay, so I'm going to keep this aside so we can cut out the ruffle that is going to be on the round the shoulder. So remember that the round the shoulder measurement that we have is 25 inches, so you can decide to multiply that by 2 or 3 or 4 or even 5, depending on how much fabric that you're working with. So for me, I am going to multiply mine by 5, and then I'm going to use this. Remember, this is what I have left from my 4 yards. I'll be cutting that out from here, and then I will make the ruffle to be, say, 4 inches is okay, because we're going to be sewing in between. So we'll have 2 on this side and 2 inches on the other side. So 4 inches is okay. So let me quickly multiply that. 25 inches by 4 or 5, it should be 125 inches, I guess. So let me just quickly calculate that so we continue. All right, like I was saying, I multiplied that by 5. That is the round the shoulder measurement, which is 25 inches, and I have 125 inches. So here I have a very long strip. Like I said, this is 125 inches by 4 inches because we're going to be sewing in between. So I decided to cut out another piece, and then I'm going to join it together with this. I want it to be 2 pieces, and then I will sew in between using my gather stitch and sew in between. After doing that, I'm going to gather it together so we can stitch it on that off the shoulder neckline. So this is my sleeve, as you can see. I just use my gather stitch also to run it. This is what I have. So I'm going to repeat the same on this other one so we can join it. So I will join the sleeve first before attaching this, although I am going to show you how to attach this. So let me quickly use my gather stitch now and run this and then gather it together before we finish up. All right, this is where we are so far. As you can see, I just want to explain what I just did here on this part. Okay, so after gathering, remember the 125 inches that I cut out. So I sew at the middle using my gather stitch, and then I gather it to the round the shoulder measurement, which is 25. But I added the 2 inches of my zipper allowance, making it 27, because we're going to sew it together with the zipper allowance. So I have 27 inches here. So now I now open it up and stitch it exactly on that seam under your seam. That is the one between the yoke and this lower part of the upper part of the dress. So I just stitch it exactly on that line. You just follow it that way. Getting to this sleeve part, you just follow it as it is. This is it. Okay, just follow it and sew on that your gather stitching. You just sew and continue like that till you get to the back side. So now before sewing this to the other side, I need to attach the second sleeve. And here is the second sleeve. Okay, so you just gather this to 6 inches. Remember, it's 5 plus 1 inch for the sewing allowance, making it, or the joining allowance, making it 6 inches. Then I am going to join it now. I'm trying to reduce it, so I'm going to take it this way and place it from this point here. I'll just place it as it is, making it like 1/4 inch upward. You need to bring it 1/4 inch upward like this, and then I'll just follow as it is. You just move this nicely and stitch it to the end, then turn it to the other side again for the back. As you can see, this is the back. So you're going to fold this one again and join the same way on the back side. After that, now I am going to take my ruffle and continue that way until I finish it up. So after all this, now I am going to cut out my, that is the skirt part. I will use 180-degree method to cut out my satin. I already have a lot of videos showing how to cut out your satin, as well as adding layers to your satin to make the ball dress fluffy without adding any hard net. So I already have a lot of videos on that, and I'm going to drop the link in the description box as well. So I will rush that part because I have a lot of videos on that. So I'll just cut out my satin, then use whatever I have here. Remember, this is the 4 yards. This is what is remaining. I'm going to use this now to create the layers on my satin. Then here I'll be cutting out the actual length of the skirt from these 3 yards. If I have any left over here, I'll also join it to make the layers on my satin. I don't want to waste any net. So before all that, let me finish up the upper part so I can sew the skirt part. So this is where we are so far. As you can see, I use what I have left to create layers for the skirt part. This is because I don't want to add any hard net to this dress. Okay, so this is how I did that. And before sewing the skirt part, you need to cut out the length of your skirt first. So whatever you have left, you now use it to create the layers. So here I have the first one that I cut out. This is the length, which is 15 and 15.5, because you'll be needing the ½ an inch for your waist sewing allowance. So I'm going to keep this aside. Now this is the length of my skirt. So here I'll be adding the crinoline. It's very easy. Just take your crinoline. For me, I am using a 1-inch crinoline. You can also decide to use 1.5 or 2 inches. It all depends on your preference. So I'm going to use this now and then sew that in on this hemline side. So I'll just place it this way as it is. But before that, I'm going to use my lighter, or if you have a matches, you can just use that, and just to bond these edges so that it will not be too pointy. After that, you will fold it in this way. Okay, I'm going to show you how to do all that. So I'll just grab my my lighter now and then, just to bond the edges, and then we continue. All right, here it is. I just use my lighter to burn this part a little so that it will not be that sharp or pointy again. So now the next thing to do is to join the skirt part together. That is the back side that is going to be for zipper. For this one, I just close it together, but you need to leave say 3 to 4 inches space. That is where your zipper will pass through for this skirt part. So this is it. I just join it together, and then I'm going to take this now to stitch on it. I'm going to show you how I do mine so that it will not be a problem on the child's skin. So this is it. I'm going to take it now as it is, and I'm going to start sewing it, say from ½ an inch. So I'll just place it now on it, and then you need to place your crinoline on the right side of your fabric. So I'll now start sewing from ½ yard now. I'm going to sew this all the way around to this part. So when I get to this side now, I am going to stitch it together this way, together with the ½ inch that I left here. So let me just sew it all around. When I get to this place, I will show you how to do that. So here it is after sewing it all the way around, and this is where we are. Now for this point, like I said, you need to leave some inches. I will now close it here. After closing it, you need to spread it open like this. So after closing it, you just fold this way, but you need to take your time. You just fold it into 2, or better still, you can also use your satin or a very light something that will not really show. You know, this is net. Anything you use will likely be visible on the net. Then you're going to secure it nicely there, after which you'll now turn it over this way and then sew it again all the way down to the other end. So let me just quickly do this, and then I will join it with the skirt part so we can finish up this dress. So this is what I have after joining everything together, and this is how the skirt looks like. Okay, so if you want your crinoline to really come out well, you need to use like 5 yards for this skirt part. You know, I use 3 yards for this skirt part. Okay, so I'm just working with what I have. So if you want it more fluffy, that is your crinoline, you can use up to 5 yards. By the time you gather it together on the waist, it's going to give you that curly effect on this hem side. Okay, so this is it. I'm going to finish up the sleeve now, so we can join this to the bodice part. Now this is the sleeve. So now for this part, you need to gather it as well. Like as you can see, I use my gather stitch to do that already. So you need to note the round this wrist measurement. So for this, it is 5. So now I'm going to gather this to say 10 inches, and then I'll use my elastic. This is my elastic, and I have 5 here already. Remember, that is my round the sleeve measurement. So this the elastic is 5 inches. So I'll gather this to give me 10 inches here. Then I'm going to take my elastic now and sew it exactly on that stitching under my stitching line. That is the gather line, so that it will hold it very well. As you can see, I've done this other side already. This is just to show you how it will look like at the end of the day. This is what I want to achieve. So I'm going to repeat the same now on this part, and then join it to the skirt part and show you the final look of this dress. Alright, this is what the dress looks like after joining everything together. As you can see, it's already looking so beautiful. So for your skirt lining, you need to attach it the same way I showed you on how I did the bodice part. So that is the same way you need to attach the lining for the skirt part. Then when you finish sewing, you just turn it over and then add your zipper, and then if you want, you can also add a bow, or you can just embellish it, style it the way you want. So that is how to go about making this beautiful birthday party dress. So that is it for today. Please subscribe if you have not, and I will see you all in my next video.